Imagine you wake up tomorrow and your special talent isn't singing or editing. It's an Omega mutation, which means your main power has no definable upper limit and nobody can swear it stops before mass casualties. Relax, nerds. This is satire. Comic accuracy may vary. Congrats! You're no longer a person. You're an anxious apocalypse in early access, and somewhere, strangers are already running simulations about what happens the first time you lose control in public. Hickman-era X-Men finally pinned it down. An Omega-Level Mutant is one whose dominant power has an undefinable upper limit within that category. That isn't strongest. That's there's no chart for this, and that should bother everyone. The second you hit Omega, your life quietly changes genre. You stop being gifted youngster and start being a line item in someone's classified binder. Governments run simulations with your name in all caps. Xavier's dream comes with footnotes, backup plans, and a what if they snap page. You sit in the room while people talk like this about you. If they defect, who stops them? If they die, what breaks? If they have kids, is that a risk? You're still figuring out your favorite cereal, and somewhere a committee already decided your worst-case scenario is official policy. That's the paperwork. Now let's talk about what your own body does to you when the ceiling vanishes. Picture Aurora Monroe at a Krakoan memorial. It's supposed to be peaceful. Names read, candles lit, people crying for mutants who died and came back a little different. Storm feels her chest tighten. Every failure, every flooded village she reached too late, every tiny face that looked at her like a goddess in the ruins, it all hits at once. Somewhere over the ocean, pressure drops. By the time she exhales, a storm cell is spinning up that's going to rewrite some fisherman's year. No villain, no plot, just grief. Storm's power isn't summon lightning because cool. Her emotional state and the atmosphere are on the same nervous system. Sad? Rain. Furious? Hurricanes. There are runs where entire ecosystems survive or collapse because of how Aurora's week is going. Your friends don't ask, "How are you?" They ask, "Do I need to move my car inland before you answer?" One panic attack at 3 a.m., one flashback to something awful, and there's a city somewhere wondering why the sky just decided to go Old Testament for no reason. Storm doesn't get to process grief. She has to schedule it around hurricane season or live with the guilt of not scheduling it at all. Emotional weather is one thing. Magneto turns the entire modern world into a loaded weapon. Magneto's Omega magnetism lets him manipulate magnetic fields, which in 2026 means bridges, bullet trains, skyscraper frames, your phone, the power grid, and the metal holding someone's chest together after surgery. Walk through Manhattan as Eric. The city hums. Under the sidewalk, subway lines coil like loaded springs. In the hospital up the street, every screw and plate in every spine is quietly aligned with you. A civilian bumps your shoulder, mutters something under their breath. For half a second, you see it. Cars peeling off the freeway. Traffic lights ripping from their poles. A curtain of sharp metal turning a street into a blender. You don't do it, but now you're afraid of your imagination. At dinner, you reach for a spoon and feel every piece of cutlery in the restaurant lean toward your hand. Somewhere in the beams above, boats creak like they're excited to see you. People don't fear what Magneto did 10 years ago. They fear the spreadsheet of things he could do if he got 6 seconds of pure, uncut rage. If Magneto weaponizes the environment, Jean weaponizes proximity to the human mind, and there's no distance limit on that one. House of X classifies Jean as an Omega telepath, telepathy alone, which is hilarious when you remember the whole Phoenix Cosmic Flamebird Extinction Kink era. Walk into a coffee shop as Jean and the music cuts out. Instead you get, "If I get fired, I can't pay rent. I wish I'd never had kids. If I just vanished, would anyone notice?" All layered over a barista silently rehearsing how to tell their partner they're leaving. Then comes the dark tape. The guy behind your imagining, in detail, how he'd kill his boss if he had powers. The woman by the window replaying childhood abuse she's never said out loud. The teammate 3 seats overthinking for one razor-thin moment. "Sometimes I wish Jean had stayed dead. It'd be easier for everyone." You can't unhear that. You still have to sit opposite them on the jet later like nothing happened. Here's the joke. You become better at predicting breakups than the couples having them. Someone sits down across from you, smiling, holding their partner's hand, and you already know it's over. You heard them rehearse the breakup speech in their head 2 weeks ago. You watch them lie to each other in real time, and you can't say a word without revealing you're the world's worst confession booth. Jean's curse isn't reading minds, it's being unable to stop reading them, and losing every chance at normal human connection in the process. If Jean is haunted by everyone's thoughts, Legion is haunted by his own. Except there's hundreds of them, and they all want the wheel. David Haller, Legion, has so many powered personalities that hundreds is safer than pretending anyone's finished counting. Each persona gets a power: pyrokinetic maniac, time manipulator, reality warper, telepath, demon, anxious pacifist, and a bunch that shouldn't exist in anything calling itself a brain. They don't cue, they hijack. You're David. You sit down in your room, blink. When your eyes open again, you're standing in the middle of a smoking crater, surrounded by X-Men yelling, "Stand down!" And you have absolutely no idea which version of you did this. You stare at the wreckage thinking, was that the one who thinks he's God, the one who hates me, or the one who honestly thought he was saving someone? You start leaving notes on your arms and walls. Don't kill anyone today. Don't talk to Xavier. Don't trust the one with the British accent. Try being in a relationship when you can't promise the person who wakes up tomorrow will even know who they're dating, or worse, might think that person is a threat and act accordingly. Legion doesn't lose himself once, he loses himself in rotations, and nobody, not even him, can promise which version shows up next. Identity splintering from the inside is bad. Iceman shows what happens when it melts from the outside. Bobby Drake's Omega cryokinesis lets him manipulate temperature and moisture so thoroughly he can disperse into mist, travel through pipes, and rebuild himself from basically air with trust issues. In the middle of a Sentinel fight, he gets blasted point blank. His torso shatters, his head pops off, teammates scream, and then the air fogs. The shards drag together, Frost pulls tight, and he's standing there again, cracking some dumb joke to stop everyone from thinking about the fact that he just died and didn't. On the outside, it's funny. Inside, it's realization. The rules that apply to everyone else do not apply to me anymore. Your friends collect scars. Their knees start going. Hair grays. You still look like the same guy who walked through Xavier's door years ago, built out of snow and denial. The mirror stops feeling like a reflection and starts feeling like a UI skin your powers are currently wearing. You catch yourself wondering if there's anything underneath it but cold. Identity doesn't always explode. Sometimes it erodes quietly until one day you realize you're not scared of dying. You're scared of not being able to feel what dying would even mean. Bobby's curse is subtle. Proteus is loud. When you can rewrite reality, the universe starts treating you like the problem. Proteus warps reality, matter, energy, physics, because when your power is that high, laws of nature are more like suggestions. On Krakoa, he's part of the Five, using that power to grow new mutant bodies in golden eggs, mutant resurrection on an assembly line. But even with the best biotech on Earth, his presence degrades his own host bodies. They have to keep growing him new ones because reality warping eats whatever he lives in. Imagine being told, "You're vital to our future." And in the same breath, you're also a design flaw we can only manage by killing and reprinting you on a schedule. Once you can rewrite reality, every nearby tragedy becomes a math problem with no correct solution. Bus going off a bridge, you could snap it back onto the road. City leveled by sentinels, you could rebuild it like it never happened. Terminal child, you could patch them into a new, healthier timeline. Now picture a hospital corridor. Left room, an unconscious villain who will kill hundreds if they live. Right room, a kid with minutes left. You can save either both or neither. You know saving both changes the future into something no one can predict. You know saving only the kid is playing God. Whatever you do, someone somewhere becomes the unseen price tag. You're haunted not just by the lives you didn't save, but by the invisible chain reactions of the ones you did. Proteus rewrites the world and pays for it with his body. Hope Summers gets treated like the world's favorite power strip. And people forget she's still plugged into feelings. Hope's Omega status comes from copying and amplifying other mutants' powers, syncing whole groups into something bigger. On Krakoa, she's the amplifier that makes the Five's resurrection process actually work. No Hope, no dependable resurrections. Standard day in the hatchery. The room is full of eggs with names attached. Dead X-Men, leaders, friends. Egg is ready, Proteus is simmering, Elixir is glowing, Tempest is focused, and there's this awkward stillness until Hope walks in. Nobody says it, but the air does. We don't do this today if she doesn't show. Later, a teammate invites you on a mission. We bring Hope or we don't go. Without her, we're just 4 people with powers and vibes. That sounds like strategy. It also sounds suspiciously like you're the mandatory PC part we actually paid for. Here's the dark joke. You overhear 2 heroes talking after a mission. One says, "Glad Hope made it out okay." The other says, "Yeah, losing her would have been bad." Short pause. For morale. Obviously. You realize they genuinely couldn't tell if they meant you or your function. And honestly, neither could you. You start cataloging people by utility, healer, damage dealer, time control. A regular friend with no combat value feels like a guilty indulgence, and you hate yourself for thinking it, but people around you is doing the same math in reverse. All of this might be survivable if Omega's got one thing everyone else takes for granted: permission to screw up without the body count. A normal mutant freezes in a crisis and people say they're traumatized. You freeze and people say, "We lost a city because you hesitated." Storm flinches and a coastline floods. Magneto blinks at the wrong moment and a bridge collapses he could have held. Jean misses one murderous thought in a stadium and someone dies she could have seen coming. Proteus refuses to rewrite a disaster and spends the rest of his life knowing he technically could have undone it. Hope takes one day off and a resurrection slot goes dark. Someone stays dead who had a way back. Every catastrophe inside your hypothetical range comes with that quiet, poisonous question. So, where were you? Intervene and you're terrifying. Don't and you're heartless. Break down and you're unstable. Ask for help and you're a liability. There's no version of, "I can't handle this right now." That doesn't come with someone mentally tallying the collateral. You start volunteering for missions you shouldn't be at, not because you're a hero, but because guilt is cheaper than hearing. If only you'd been there. You drag yourself into fights when you're done, because done isn't on the form for people like you. The form only has online or fret. Everyone wants an Omega on the board. Almost nobody wants an Omega having a normal, selfish, collapsing human day. The power doesn't erase your humanity. The fear, expectations, and constant framing of you as infrastructure do it slowly, until the world stops seeing you as someone who could fail and starts seeing you as something that simply isn't allowed to. At that point, you're not a superhero. You're a utility with fan art. So yeah, having a ceiling, turns out that's just a built-in excuse to be disappointingly human at a manageable scale. Next time you wish you were Omega, remember, Marvel literally had to invent resurrection org charts, golden eggs, and data pages just to explain how the planet survives having these people around. That's not a flex, that's a warning label disguised as lore. Sleep tight, normal human. Your bad day might suck, but at least nobody needs an evacuation plan when you have one.